Hello, everyone, and welcome to Film Independent Presents, our year-round screening and Q&A series, now virtual. I'm Brian Sheen with Film Independent. Thank you so much for joining us to talk all things 9 Days from Sony Pictures Classics. First off, I'd like to thank some of our partners, our lead sponsor, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, and our screening partner, Vision Media. And today we have a very special guest moderator in acclaimed filmmaker Spike Jonze, also an executive producer on this film. And without further ado, I'll let Spike take it away from here.
All right, thanks, Brian. I'm very excited to do this with you guys. We haven't met a lot of you, but I've gotten to know Edson very well this year, and I love the movie and love what you guys that you guys actually pulled it off. I feel like this movie is like, it's so ambitious in its setting and story, and that these things are like these delicate bubbles, and it would be so easy to do a story this ambitious wrong, like one little move, but it just feels like it just sustains this spell. But I mean, I guess that goes. Like, I feel like every bit of it, that every performance and every choice is just keeps it afloat in this magic sort of emotional. Because it's a surrealistic idea, but we can just start with maybe with everybody. Like, how does everyone go about creating a character who hasn't been alive yet, who has no experience, who has no, what were their discussions for that? What were the processes with Edson and the processes in your own process of how you go about creating a character?
I think Billy and Zazie could talk about that, right? They're the candidates here.
Yeah, I think we went, we actually, before we started shooting, all of the candidates, we sat together with Edson and talked about that we needed to kind of create or decide together if there was sort of this baseline of discovery, essentially. And we were these new entities in this space, and we understood potentially like what water was, but we'd never tasted it or felt it. And we needed to sort of all to create kind of like a unified universe, all decide like, are we going to be like, wow, water? Or are we going to just sort of be like, water? Interesting. And that was like a conversation we had, so that, we were kind of all on the same page. And I think as an actor, it was very interesting to engage with a person who didn't have a backstory. And, it was rather refreshing, actually, to really engage. It forced me to engage directly with the moment and to be interested in the moment directly, and to not muddle it with other contexts. And I found it a very kind of wonderful process to be Emma and to not have any baggage. And I think it reminded me as Zazie that I shouldn't carry around my baggage in a way,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because all of those decisions, all those discussions you had, they give you so much to think about as a viewer, as you are sort of digesting the movie and the characters and what a soul is. And anyone else in terms of just the candidates, in terms of what other thoughts, how you build a character without a backstory? Or
yeah, I mean, I'll just add on what Zazie said. I mean, it was the script itself was so, and again, to your point, Spike, I think that reading the script, you go like, okay, this is very particular and strange, and it could go so many ways. And like, what is this? And obviously, this is all Edson, and it is his world. That for me, approaching it, I was just like, what do you want of me here? Like, what are the rules in this world, and how could I serve these rules, right? So, because there's so many ways to go about it, right? I mean, you could have those scenes where like, okay, this soul or this, you know, spirit is just instantly born. So how does that happen, and what does that mean for him as, or for me trying to play that? Like, does it feel funny speaking? Is that a thing that's like, or like moving around, like all these different things are perfectly, you know, acceptable questions. And I think we explored it with Edson, and a lot of the times Edson was just like, no, just normal, just more normal, just more normal. And I was like, okay, perfect, man. I mean, like, at the end of the day, I think why the movie works is because it was Edson overseeing it, and he had a very particular vision of this world that obviously doesn't exist. So for me, it was all about just kind of forgetting everything about protecting the character, because there wasn't really one. It was just, how do I serve this universe that Edson has created, and obviously make it effectful, right? Like these spirits or souls are kind of caricatures of ideas of how we view people.
Yeah, I think on that note, Spike, what was interesting is just like having all kind of you know, performance in the sense of like, oh, discovery, like, oh, I never seen taste tea or something, and then I'm gonna have a reaction towards that since I never taste tea. But then there's another, you know, a take that we would do like something like as Bill said, like more normal, you know, more casual. You know, maybe I never taste tea, but somehow it's not as a big deal. And then like we would create like this kind of you know, different levels of this person who never lived before. And then I think like when you're in the editing room, we would see what everyone did and try to somehow make them feel similar. So it's more like having like all these palettes, and then when you're in the editing room, we kind of feel like, okay, now we can since the other candidate wasn't like super, you know, and so we start just putting everyone in the same box, I think.
It feels very cohesive in that way. I have a question for Winston. When you read the script, like, what's your process of how you choose to take a project? And as you read the script, how do you like? Do you normally know right away when you read it? Like, at what point, as you were reading it, did you decide you wanted to do it? Was there a point like or was it after you spoke to Edson, or what was the process of that?
Oh man, there's so many different things, but after reading the script, I would say I was about 80% in, where I loved the world. I saw it as an incredible acting opportunity because there's so much character to build. So I always love anything that gives me an opportunity to kind of create something myself, and then insert all the narratives that I carry and either augment or undermine something, right? So either augment some of the narratives that are placed on me as a person and placed on people who look like me and feel like me, or undermine either same thing. So undermine those narratives, right? So with me, I was thinking, this is a really cool opportunity to see a guy who is like almost 300 pounds, 6'5", Black male, be really vulnerable, be really intellectual, be purpose-driven outside of physicality. And this could be played by other people, but the narratives that I carry would change how this character's seen and change, hopefully, like the film landscape just by me playing it. And I thought that was really interesting. And then I was like, I get to undermine so many ideas around like Blackness, around masculinity, around the idea of seeing Blackness in a universal lens. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. That's really amazing. And then after I spoke to Edson, we spoke for maybe 2 hours or more. And he was just a person. He was a really good guy. And we talked about the movie maybe for half an hour. And then we talked about everything else. And I said, I love this guy. I'd really love to work with this guy. And a sentiment that I always share with anything I love, whether I get the job or not, I always say, I'd love for this to be made. And that's how I felt about the project. I said, I would love for this movie to be made. And if it's made with me, it would be something really special and really specific. But if it's not with me, I would still love to go and watch this movie. Because when I read a script, I can't separate myself from the viewing lens. What made me love this movie as an actor is one of the reasons that I would love it as, as an audience member. Like, it took me on a journey. I start someplace completely different than where I end up. And that's Will's journey. And that's the audience's journey. You don't expect where you end up by the end of the film. And that moved me. I stopped and I thought about, the script maybe for like half an hour, 45 minutes, just sitting there, like ready to cry, feeling really moved, feeling really joyous, feeling very lucky to be alive in that moment. And that was my experience right after the script read.
Meaning sort of the effect of the end of the film and what Zaza's character leaves Will with.
Mm-hmm.
As a reader, you were left with that sentiment.
I was left with that sentiment. I said, wow. Like I felt, in my acting training and all that, like one sentiment always stayed with me, right? And it's that you want the air to change around you. In really great scenes, in really great films, and really great theater exchanges, right? You can feel the shift in the air when people dial in and they're moved and they're changed and everything changes. And I was in my bed alone at night reading this script and the air changed. When I read it, I was in the script and I pulled out and I went, wow. And I just felt the air change. Like, it was like, this is a really great script.
Someone turned on the AC, right?
Oh, this script is so good.
That's a great description of it, though. You can feel it. Like, yeah, when you're engaged by something that's that alive, yeah, it is like the air is alive, everything is alive. And
it becomes electric. And that's how it felt, at the premiere of the film. Everyone in the audience, you would hear it, you would hear sniffles, you would feel the shift. And, watching it for the first time, I always look around. I'm always looking around at the audience to like kind of gauge what's going on, how they feel, what's happening. And you feel it. People are, I think, changed, and especially in the world that we're in right now, this circumstance, you can't help but understand the film in a totally different way than, pre-COVID, pre-isolation.
In what ways do you feel that?
I feel it brings a lot of the larger statements to the forefront, right? Which is appreciating the small moments. The small moments are just as important as all the large ones. And it's these small moments that come together to create the larger tapestry that we inhabit, right? So it's a macro, micro conversation. And we tend to be so caught up in the micro of the moment, of the present, that we forget that there's so much going on. There's so many pieces to the puzzle that we're constantly contributing to. And we forget what the larger picture looks like, but we get caught in the present. We get caught in the depression of the now, in the anxiety of like what's coming next, in the anxiety of where I am right now, that you forget that there's so much more adversity that you've come through before, that there's a lot of beauty that you've experienced in the past and the beauty you'll experience in the future. And this moment that you're in is temporary. So like the micro at times is very distracting from the macro. And the movie has this acceptance of both. We see really micro moments, and Zazie's character reminds me that these micro moments mean so much, and they're adding to the larger picture. Remember the larger picture. Remember all the things that makes this special, and that's what we accept by the end. And it's a moment like right now where we are in a micro moment. This will change. The COVID and all that stuff will go away eventually, and we have to remember that there's a larger picture, there's a larger experience, and what is it that we're going to learn? How are we going to move forward out of this and appreciate just what we have, who we are? It's micro moments and the larger tapestry at hand. And I think no better time than now are we really challenged to remember the larger picture more than the micro.
Mm-hmm. That's great. It does feel like a movie for right now. It's really interesting, and I guess the Edson, we've talked so much. I've got to know you so well over the last year, and asked you so many of these questions about writing the script and creating, the story. But I think what's really interesting is when you talk about like creating this, the journey from the idea to actually discovering the script. It sounded like there was like 3 major script rewrites. And so what was the process of this? Was this the first script you sat down to write, or had you written other scripts?
I wrote other scripts, but this one I think was the most personal, I think, for me.
And what do you think made it work? That from the other ones and also from the early drafts, what was the discovery?
I think from the other ones really helped in a way, like just how to write a script, how to organize the scenes and write dialogue and all this stuff, and figure out more or less what my voice was, and I think when I started writing the script, actually in my mind was just write something that something small, something that if no one wants to invest money in it, I can just gather a bunch of friends and just start like a Kickstarter or something, just shoot myself. So my initial idea is just 9 days was like 100K movie, which is very naive from my side, but I wrote, okay, I'm gonna write something very small and intimate, and then at the same time, things coming from advertising, I always explore this kind of high concepts or things that are it's almost like there's one liner. What's the big idea, somehow. So I had in mind this kind of I'm kind of fascinated, obsessed about what comes next or afterlife or anything. And then I felt like no one ever talk about what comes before. And at the time was interesting because when I started thinking what comes before, and it was at the same time I was struggling here in America and feeling as an immigrant. I just came, I quit my job, and it was just so much in doubt of what I was doing and in going through struggles. And at that time I feel what if this is actually the goal, this, I have the goal of making a movie, but actually being here is already something amazing and great, and it's an opportunity that so many infinite billions of I don't know, genes, or they would never have the opportunity to be alive. So I'm alive. That's great. And that this kind of was a genesis of the world that I was building. But and at the same time, when I was writing the character of Will, I was inspired a lot by an uncle of mine, and he also, when he was he went through a lot of struggle, much more than I went through it, and he committed suicide when he was 50, and at the time that was very it was weird because it was he became this kind of figure of he can become like that guy, you have to be. I always have the sense of you have to be tough to survive the world. That's how people try to explain what happened to him, and and then I felt like, no, yeah, I have to be tough. I can't be like him. I have to be tough. I can be
How old were you?
sensitive. I can.
How old were you?
I was 12 at the time, and it's interesting because coming when I came here to America and I started going through a lot, I started just feeling like I think things that he went through, you know, and then I started realizing, you know, this is hard. This is actually what he went through was it's so human and it's so hard and so, but at the same time gave me some sensibilities for things that I didn't have, you know. So, but I kind of started developing like a lot of empathy for what he, you know, went through, and at the same time fearing a lot, uh, becoming like him. And at that time, with this, you know, idea of this concept for the movie in my mind, and also going through that same struggle that my uncle was going through, and having, like, and then I felt like I need to write this piece. And it was interesting because first when I wrote, I went through the Sundance Labs. They helped me so much.
And at
And
that point, at that point, because the theme of, do you put, do, well, how do we live in the world? Do we live harder or do we live more open? And like, you know, Bill and Zaza's
yeah,
character
yeah,
being these sort of metaphors
yeah,
for
yeah.
what the world needs right now.
Mhm, yeah.
Was that already going into was that theme the center? Was that one of the
Yeah.
central questions that
Yeah,
was?
yeah. It was already, I think since the first draft, there was the interviewer, and there was Zazie, and there was Bill's character would represent these two dynamics of Zazie, like this, you know, uh, how uh, how can I help the other person? How can I, you know, change the world around me? And how can I, which is very noble. And Bill was more like, how can I fit the word? I feel like Bill is more or less,
How can I win?
like, how can I win? But I think like, how can I win? But I think it's interesting because it starts how can I win, and then Bill, when he came to the project, he starts just making the the character more human. You know, the way that I start really liking, you know, his character, and we had a lot of conversation. But it was like, I always felt like Bill would be like this douchey guy who, you know, wants to win and all this stuff. But I think he starts just like making him someone more human, in a way that I think as Zazie, she wants to change the world. I think like Bill's character wants to mirror the world.
Mm.
So if you're kind to him, he'll be kind. But if you're not, he'll be tough on you. He'll be violent.
That's a great.
Yeah. So and I already had this two, you know, sides, and that was my initial idea already. And it's interesting because Will's character, uh, he he never lived before. So in my first drafts, he's never lived before, but somehow he was already inspired by this kind of notion of someone who, you know, I don't know if exactly if yeah, I don't remember exactly, but it already had these elements of my uncle, but I think it was more like this story rather than being Will, I think, because Will never exists before. And then I think like going through the Sundance Labs, I don't remember exactly, but then it was a moment that I was really motivated to embrace the side of, you know, my uncle. That it was really tough for me, you know, to be close to that, because I was fearing like, you know, becoming like that, or fearing. But at the time, saying, you know, if I don't embrace this side, I just like I gonna miss it. Embrace the side, embrace the story of my uncle, and how it's my connection with him, my fear of becoming like him and stuff. And I felt, you know, I'm gonna embrace it. And then Will basically became my uncle and me, you know, somehow.
And that's when you decided that Will had actually been alive before.
Had been alive, yeah. And then he become, yeah, yeah, and
he became.
yeah, yeah. That he's being alive, and then embrace it, and it was part of, you know, what my uncle was so passionate about movies in a way that you know, it's so sad, you know, he's not around, but he used to, he was an amazing drawer. He would draw all the posters in Hollywood movies and all the stuff, and he was so passionate about it. And he had the sense of, you know, he's not, he thought he was never normal, he never, you know, succeed, and never, and it was such a very, you know, tough life for him. And it would be, I think it would be so amazing for him to see like this movie, this kind of the genesis of the project was him, right? So, but yeah, so it's
no, go ahead.
it started with the word, and then it was more. It started with more a concept, like Kane's character, Emma's character, and then somehow my uncle was, the should it be tough or not, and all this stuff, and then Will was more like this angel, who was just judging and seeing things, and then later became more about Will's character who lived before, and then his journey, and then like this the competition is more like something that is there's something just to push forward his journey as like finding himself and going back to the way he lived before and the way he sees himself right now.
That's incredible that you just kept searching, you found the structure for it, and that the whole, I find the whole movie, everything about it really moving, and even talking about it's really moving. And
Thank you.
I think the perform, you can tell all of all the cast brought so much openness and so much heart to it and so much presence to it, and interesting, like that. Benedict, your character is kind of, I don't know, you kind of have the heart that holds the film in some way. Like you're kind of like the I don't know, like there's something really powerful about your presence, and I don't know what was your discussion? How did you create the character? What were your discussions with Edson's, and what did you believe your role was? And
yeah, I guess in a way I've never lived before, and yeah, I was always constantly helping Will. In a way, I kind of felt like I was part chorus, part his conscience. Yeah, offering balance and perspective. It's kind of there's elements. It's quite sad though, because he's in a way I feel like he just wanders out alone, and he has this appetite to have interactions with people, and it's he lives for mimicking moments, almost kind of, if he's a waiter at the end, I was just watching it for the second time I was seeing it, or going to the concerto. He needs to find something somewhere, and be a part of it. And yeah, it's but definitely, I mean, he's seen Will's character, from being a candidate to being someone who's lived, to see it ebb away and go, and for him to kind of he wants to realize as well, for him to kind of turn around and see himself and wake up and be alive again, and I think seeing Zazie's characters, I mean, for me, I was thinking that she's almost like an angel, really. That is compassionate, offers balance again, and kind of, in a way, sort of steps aside and allows Kane to take the prize as such, and then forces him to kind of do the monologue, to be alive, and she gets a chance to kind of experience being alive again,
Yeah, that's the last scene is so powerful. It's just so incredible. But the writing of it, the last, I guess, 15 minutes from Will, getting Emma's note of what she wants, and then not seeing her, and then seeing all those notes she left, and running after him, and obviously the monologue what Zazie, just in terms of being a part of that, watching Winston and perform that, describe that day. Was that like, what was that like? The desert with the
yeah, no, it was a very special day. I think it was really interesting, I think, because Winston the whole time was kind of very much living in Will and living in Will's isolation, and I really felt a shift on that day, just like in the makeup trailer of Winston and Will, I suppose, being in a place less of like protection and more of giving. And I remember you saying that, Winston, I think we were laughing about something and you were just saying, I'm just ready to give. And I think also just in terms of set, the house is, I feel like the set itself was very much a character in the film. The house kind of being this like warm, womb-like closed space where we were all sort of brooding and doing our thing. And then the desert is this kind of wide expanse of the world. And I was rather shocked at how much sort of vibrant and like vital energy I was receiving from nature and kind of the power of this stark, wide open space. And I really just kind of leaned into that and kind of was like, Mother Earth, feed me. And then coupling that with, I think, because we kind of shot in sequence, and so the connection that Winston and I had formed at that point, and the trust that we had sort of built at that point, I really just kind of, I just listened. And it sounds kind of corny, but really the text and the monologue, which is a Walt Whitman piece or an excerpt from, it is profoundly moving. It's beautiful. It's about life and death and rebirth and wilting, and like it's just, it really, for me as Emma, I felt I was receiving something I'll never otherwise receive. And this was my only format of it. This was my only experience of what life was going to be. Also, right before my knowledge of kind of disappearing, I just became, as Emma and as Zazie, I just became really emotional. And I was kind of surprised at how emotional I became. We kind of also just like free formed it. Initially, I was going to maybe be sitting down. We had no idea. We just we didn't really rehearse it. We just sort of did it. And suddenly, from the first take, it was apparent that I don't know. I feel like we had kind of led up to this moment, and both of us were sort of ready to do it, and had just been preparing internally just by shooting the movie and getting to know our characters for this kind of thing. I'd say it's one of my like favorite things I've ever shot. It was just so powerful, as like the muses of all things I felt converged in my heart. So that's my take.
Incredible scene, and it's incredible. I feel like that scene, like it's a kind of scene that, like, when I watched the movie, I had it on a link, and I just went and watched that whole sequence again, because like I feel like that scene is like a such a powerful, iconic scene, and I could imagine being a part of it and creating it. You could not feel that. And Winston, what about that day? And also, how do you pronounce your name? I feel like I'm totally messed up.
No, it's fine. Zazie. So like think of like the sea, Zazie, but I also accept Zazie. So
okay. All right, I'll send you. Okay,
don't worry about it. You're in good company there.
So, Winston, so yeah, being in, tell me about that day, and creating that scene with Zazie and.
Oh man, that day was graduation day, right? That was the culmination of an entire process. And that scene could not have been done without, my opinion, like really going through all the other preceding scenes and going through what we had was a 2-week rehearsal process, which is really big for a 24-day shoot movie. So we had about a 2-week rehearsal process where we all came together. I was working with Edson prior, and then Zazie, and we went through our scenes and we experimented, just played and really felt these characters in the space. Worked with Benedict really extensively, and I was very, very intimidated by that poem. So it's really just like lucid language. There's little to no punctuation. It's just like words on a page. And you got to make sense of it. And initially I wasn't going to do it because Edson said, if you have something that you've done and, through your work in theater or something like that, that you feel more comfortable with, what it really is about is a performance. It's a piece that he feels very comfortable with, and it means a lot to him. So if you have something that means a lot to you, we can use that. And I was looking through all these plays. I was looking through Chekhov. I was looking through August Wilson. I was looking through Shakespeare. I was looking through all these different plays. And I'd bring it to Edson and he'd say, yeah, it's good. Anything else? Because I really strongly believe that whether Edson knew it or not, whether it's something intuitive or spiritual or otherworldly or channeling his uncle, the Walt Whitman piece was perfect. And it wasn't until we were rehearsing it and Benny was like, just do it. Just do it. Just don't think about it. Just do. Bring M'Baku if you need to. That's what he said to me. He was like, do it as M'Baku for Black Panther. Do it as M'Baku, whatever you need to do. And honestly, I couldn't have done it without the spirit of collaboration. It was Benny like helping me like beat through some of the scenes, beat through some of the lines. It was working with Edson and like going through and saying, this is right, this isn't, and simplify, because that's what was really beautiful and special about a world that feels so complicated, a world that is so large and expansive and really big, deep ideas. Edson just kept saying, simplify it, simplify it. We really want this to be approachable, simplify it. So on that day, when we got there, I could not have done that speech without all the moments before. And it's really exactly like Zazie's character says, remember the small moments. And the small moments for me was the rehearsal, was the small conversations and large conversations with Benny, was the moments that I'm sharing with Zazie every single day and she's like bringing her best, and the moments I'm sharing with the rest of the cast, with Bill, and he's like showing up and like challenging me in really small personal ways, and everyone's like contribution erupted that day. And it was graduation day. It was the entire energy, because I remembered praying in the desert, and I just said, all that is here, fill me, and I'm your vessel. Let me just be here today and express your truth. And I said that in the desert before we started. And I remember just being there. Just being there, and just like being there with Zazie and taking her in and really doing what it was that Will was doing, which was sharing. Will was sharing something that meant everything to him with someone who meant everything to him. And that's how important that character is to, was for me. And Zazie became that character for me. So I was looking at her and looking in her eyes and saying, play with me. All I can share with you is the child in me, and the child in me wants to play, and he recognizes you and how much you want to play. So play with me. And that's what we did that day. And it was, like I said, it was graduation day.
Yeah, and the way she was
What's interesting. Oh, sorry.
You can say the way that you are looking at him, the way you're pulling it out of him, it's like this the deepest, like unconditional celebration of him, and which is like, I feel like one of the things that's so powerful about the movie is, and your performance is, the pressure cooker that Will is, and that he won't give anything away. He won't give anything away, even though he's desperate to. And then at the end, he gives it all up, gives it all away. But sorry, Zazie, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say that I think you mentioning like your invitation to for me to play with you, I think is interesting, because we had also not planned at all that like I would kind of partake. That was completely not planned. And that was such an interesting kind of transition, I feel like, that nobody really expected. And I think that kind of came essentially, from that like direct invitation to partake. And I feel like that at least while shooting it kind of really shifted, I feel like, the flavor of what we were doing that day, and shaped how we like continued shooting it throughout the day. And so that was like an interesting, for me, sort of an interesting development that nobody had any idea would happen.
Mm. Yeah, it really felt like what the poem said it all. And the sentiment of the beginning of the poem is, give me this one moment and I will show you forever. And that was the invitation, like right from the top, like give me now and I will show you infinity. I will give you infinity, and it was that. And that sentiment is like just what I tried to carry through at every moment, in that, and just play.
That was beautiful. It was incredible, incredible movie, and incredible end. Like, you couldn't ask for a more powerful ending. And it's interesting that like that piece of writing that the Edson sent me the original piece. That's, I don't know how many, 20 pages long, and just Edson's selection of it, and also Edson's edit of it, the way he pulled these lines from this huge long Walt Whitman piece and condensed it into this potent, dense, beautiful.
It's funny because actually I think Winston, he added most of I think he did the good work, actually. I don't know. Right? It's so funny you say that, because you say like, oh, the last part of the movie has the best writing. Yeah, I agree, because I didn't write. And and it's funny because it also does the best directing, because mostly I didn't direct. Let's see, it was just like wait, it's so funny because the whole movie I was such a control freak, and it says the dollies and stuff in it, and decide, okay, the last part that I didn't write, and last part of the movie I was gonna put Wyatt, my cinematographer, amazing cinematographer, just to follow them, and I give like some general direction. Then I started giving some very specific. So, no, what are you doing? And then they just did it, and I was just very far from them. I don't know, maybe because I was afraid of maybe controlling them, or maybe because I was just like, and then they were just like, doing their things. And it was funny because it was the most important part, the movie, and the part that I direct the least, in that I didn't write.
That's that's such a confident, to me, that's a really confident directorial choice, though, because it is like Will's character. Will is controlling till that point, and that point he's surrendered all control to the desert, to Zazie, to the universe, and I think that's also that's a directorial choice to step back, and I think to have that confidence to know to do that and let the text and the actors.
Yeah, no, I had great actors. I think it was, but I think it's interesting because, as you said, Will was just confined. I was the force that was just suppressing him. You know, Winston. You can't, I was just like the guy over his shoulder, just like you can't be free. You can't, and then. Every time he was trying to do something and show some emotions, and no, you can't show emotions, or just settle down something. And then in the end, I think it was good because then it was more away. It was like, and then he was able to just like be, you know, this living, you know, excited, you know, being, and the director wasn't there to just like, you know, just you have to be in control. And something interesting as well, like I wrote it, I didn't write, Walt Whitman wrote, you know, but I put in the movie as a monologue. But in the end, it became like a duet, I think, which was surprising. It was this dialogue between Zazie character and Winston, because I felt like that was a monologue. And then as they start playing together, I said, "Oh my God, that's it!" And when they yell together, oh, it's the dialogue, you know. And that was great because then I said like, "Oh, my cover is gonna be just Winston and stuff." And then when Zazie started just participating, because I think in the beginning it was just, "Oh, Zazie, just sit there." And we watch, and then she started just like, of course, she started just like participating because it's life is contagious. And then she started just talking to him with dancing, movement, and then became this dialogue, you know. So I was so lucky. Yeah, it was
incredible. And then the scream. Oh, go ahead. There's a scream in the Bible.
I was just gonna say that trust was like a constant through line throughout the whole process, and like we couldn't have done it without all of that trust. Like we trusted each other, and I feel that 2 weeks of rehearsal really added to that, is because everyone knew that everyone was going to show up ready to give everything, and that whatever choice that you would make or could make could be supported and supported by the other. And by the time we got through that scene in the desert, I felt really comfortable with Zazie because I knew that I literally threw books at her, you know, in the first scene. if we can feel that comfortable throwing books and throwing things on the ground and screaming at each other, and me testing them and pushing them in that way, I know that they're gonna catch me. I know that Zazie's gonna catch me in the desert if necessary. I know that she's gonna get up and scream and play and hold hands and run and cry. And I know that we're gonna be able to do that. And that was the trust. And we trusted Edson as well. Edson was there always saying, whatever you need, whatever you need. He just kept saying, whatever you need, I got you, whatever you need. Whatever you need to make this happen, whatever you need. And it's that, it was that. It was a lot of trust. That the through line of trust came through and was pervasive throughout the entire process.
Whatever you need, except time and more days. And,
whatever you could give. Whatever you could give.
Yeah.
Edson, one of the things you were telling me also, and we have to wrap this up soon, but and Winston, the way you talked about Benedict and Edson, the way you've talked about Benedict, it feels like I've worked with on a few movies now with Catherine Keener, and Catherine Keener is, to me, like an incredible actress and also an incredible supporting actor, because she knows, like, her ability to be there for everyone, her ability to be there for the other actor in the scene, the cast, the crew, the director, like it's profound. And I feel like the way Winston describes you and the way Edson's described you is like that you played that role. And that's kind of why I was asking about your character, because it feels like on set it sounds like is that something specific to this movie, or is that something you bring to every movie that you are?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm always a pretty good team player, but I think it's being, to serve constantly, and in a way, I was always there to be at hand with Will, but also, yeah, with Winston. Always, I mean, I'm Winston during the Doctor Strange period. We met a couple of times, and we kind of had a good chat and a laugh, and then all of a sudden we were in a movie together, and it was like, this is fantastic, and it's like, I don't know, just and then quickly sort of this project, I just wanted to serve this project as well, and yeah, just be there for everybody, really. Yeah, it was, but yeah, Benedict, also kind of.
I mean, Benedict won't ever say it, and it's not his place to say it, but Benedict is one of the best actors working. Like, hands down, bar none, Benedict Wong is one of the best actors we have. And
hang on, did that PayPal go through there?
I can.
And it's that, like, Benedict literally, like, it's not his place to say it, but like, that's, anyone who works with him knows that, and like, that's the sentiment that Edson and I had from like the first discussion. It was like, oh yeah, we're trying to get, do you know Benedict Wong? I was like, do I know Benedict Wong?
Oh, bless you, man.
And that was that. Like, I found out he was gonna be in the movie, and I got so excited because I remembered seeing Benny do like Doctor Strange. I saw Benny, amazingly, I stalk him a little bit. Like, he'll just get random messages from me on Instagram, like, I just watched Marco Polo again. You're amazing. And he shows up every single day ready to work, and he puts in the time with, he put in time with me, just to, like, we would prepare our scenes before we went out there, and we would be running scenes back and forth and just trusting each other. So like, yeah, there's I'm gonna jump up and raise my hand and do all the playing of the trumpets.
Yeah, I can feel that. I can feel that from the way you guys talk about it. I can feel it from his performances every time he's on screen in any film. But also just from the way Edson talks about him, then it is like that he's the kind of person you want on your set, that he's like going to make the character better, the scene better, he just, I don't know, Edson, will you talk about what your experience?
Yeah. I think one scene that shows that clearly there's one scene I think Benny and Winston were discussing about the past and all stuff at the kitchen table, and it's a very emotional scene, and mostly it's more about Will talking and there's a moment that when Benny started feeling that Winston was getting better and better take after take, and then but I knew like I had like limited amount of time to just shoot the whole scene, so I said, okay, like one more, and probably we're gonna go for Benny's coverage, and then Benny came to me and said, Edson, just keep shooting him, I don't care, just you can shoot just last takes of me or something, but he's getting better, just keep shooting him. That was so generous, from his part, in a way, like he would sacrifice his stakes, so he knew like, okay, this scene is about him, he is better, maybe just do one coverage or two coverage or something of me, but it's about him, he's getting better, just shoot him. So I felt like really, that was very, very, very inspiring to hear that at the time.
So you send that PayPal back to me there, mate. Oh, thank you.
To wrap this up, it's such a special film, and it sounds like such a special experience. Maybe everyone could just sort of end with a moment that they take away, like almost like Zazie's note of these small moments that so like if everyone could sort of, you know, is there some moment from the creation of this that is, yeah.
Just when we went back to the duologue at the end, what was amazing about it was the Walt Whitman speech about the act into the word to action, and then all about this. Take a second about this micro moment and this micro moment, and then it's forcing Will to live. Each moment makes you alive, and this transition between Z's character that's ebbing away, and then just touching and tasting and being alive. And the moment that stole my breath away was when they both stole their breath away, and that after when he finished the speech, and then it was just the air between them, and it was like one's living, one's dying, one's living, dying, and then that moment was beautiful for me.
Amazing.
Anybody else want to tell a moment from creating the film that is their moment?
I think on wrap day. So the film is everything. Our experience is everything. Like we shared with each other. And then on wrap day, we ended. So just a little bit of context. We would start the first day of the week at maybe 6:30 or 7 a.m. And then gradually every day would get later. So we would start at maybe 7 a.m. on like the first day. And then by the final day of the week, we would be wrapping at like 6:30 a.m. So you had no concept of time. So you'd come out of pretty much, what was like a casino experience. You just like come outside and you're like, I've been in there for my life. And we walked outside and there were 2 rainbows. And that for me really captured what we had created. We created something in the studio, we created something in a desert, and then on the final day, there was literally a silver lining. It was literally like a rainbow, something that felt providential. And that to me is something that I can't forget. And I'll never forget my experience creating 9 days and being a part of 9 days.
That's beautiful. Bill, do you have?
Yeah, I was just thinking there's plenty of little moments, but there was so most of the shoot was shot in the house that was built on a sound stage. That was like Winston said, it was like it might as well be a 24/7 casino. Like you didn't see any sunlight or anything, and time kind of stood still. And for us playing the candidates, we never interacted with anyone but Winston really in our scenes. So for me, there's the scene that when we're having the dinner and Benedict and Zazie is there and we're out on the salt plains. So the place itself that they build, the exterior of the house, was so breathtaking and beautiful. It's just like the salt plains. And then for all of us kind of sitting there interacting, and also, with Zazie and me having this kind of tension and but also finding humanity in each other, or kind of understanding something about each other. Although for Kane, them being rivals, I don't know. There was just, and we had a lot of fun shooting that scene, all of us, and we were kind of, it was like running into the late hours, and we were all very giggly towards the end of it, and the scenes and how they were setting up the shots, and I don't know, there was just something about that coming out of this house into the salt plains, and that obviously had something to do with what the character was feeling at the time, but yeah, it was a special little moment. It's my favorite scene.
So our last day for me, you, and
that's right, yeah.
So I think we were all kind of just, that was fun.
Yeah.
I'd also say, I think just like the experience kind of, I think of just like the salt plains. I think I had also never seen anything like that in my life. And so I just kind of found the experience of being there really wonderful, and kind of, I think, a testament to the film of like life can be affirming, and we are kind of surrounded by majesty at all points and of time. And I just really kind of felt very connected, like, to our earth and its bigness, and it, so I think kind of just the time out there in the salt flats, as kind of like hot and like uncomfortable it was too. It was just like, it was nice, yeah, coming out of the house. Oh, the house is really wonderful too.
I can feel that. That's great. And sorry, Edson, what's a precious, one of the moments you would
I think it was when we all had dinner together with producers and all the actors, and for me it was just like, it was so surreal, feeling like I'm gonna make a movie with all those amazing actors, and it's my first movie, and it was so much thrill and fear and everything, and it was I think it was very human, but a great feeling, like, to have it. That was good.
I love that. Well, thank you guys for doing this. I love the movie, and I love what you somehow this alchemy of this group of people and the script and Edson's heart, and created this really special, unique, rare thing. And I'm very, very happy to be a small part of it. And congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks for